5:06 in the evening with Lynn, Kelvin and Ayman. And first up this hour, it is Popek-Popek Social. So we're talking actually about hospitality, what it means, how hospitable we are, and how it's expressed differently by different people, different cultures. This is coming from an article in The Guardian, which explored that very thing, right? The power of hospitality and how it can transcend borders.
So one of the points brought up by the article is the role of food in showing hospitality. And we can see that over here because food is usually the first thing that we offer when we have people coming over. And I think peak hospitality when it comes to food is when we have open houses with tons of guests and lots of food during festivities. And I think the reason we serve all these food is so that people can have a good time and they love coming to your house and they feel welcome when they are there.
But there's more to hospitality than just food. You know, the conversations we have with our guests are important too. Telling stories, listening to them, keeping the conversation going, and just generally making sure that they don't feel bored or awkward. And in these cases, perhaps the guest also plays a role. If we are awkward guests, then no amount of food or chit-chat can fix that situation.
So I actually have a lot of complicated feelings about this, which we'll get into after this, because as always, when it comes to a Popek-Popek segment, we wanted to just hear from others outside of the studio, you know, to talk about their experiences with hospitality. So we went around, spoke to a bunch of people, and first thing we asked was how they learned to be hospitable.
I guess it's just the way I was brought up, just kind of always thinking about what someone else might be feeling or experiencing. So I guess my parents.
My mother taught me. She taught me that whenever there's guests, right, you always need to give a good impression.
My grandma used to not stay with us for a full time, like permanently. So when she does come over, we just like prepare the couch or the guest bedroom and remember to clean the bathroom and prepare water and stuff.
And some of the people we spoke to had great experiences as guests when they were abroad.
Is a family friend of mine that I didn't know very well, but we went to visit them in Vietnam. And they literally let us stay at their house, cooked food for us, would take us to the best restaurants, showed us around. They really made us feel at home in a country we'd never been to before.
When I was studying in the UK, I also visited my friend's house in the south of France, and his family took the whole lengths to always cook halal food, like chicken and beef, like no pork, and I mean they would drink in front of me, but they did a lot of measures to make sure I felt okay and comfortable.
And of course, we also asked if they felt Malaysians in general are a hospitable bunch. The responses were a bit mixed.
In general, I would have to say no, but I think it also depends on who their target is. For someone who is a local but hasn't really lived here very long, they're not particularly hospitable to me, but I've seen them be very hospitable to people from Western countries.
I think Malaysians are very, very, very hospitable, and we're a kind bunch. Best selling point that we have for tourism purposes, no doubt. Yep.
I think it depends on where you go. Some places, it's not hospitable at all. And some places, it's just so too hospitable, you feel a bit suffocated. So I guess, it's like there's no in-between.
So that is a sampling of, just tiny survey for individuals. We also went on to ask if they felt that they were good hosts. Two said they were, the other two kind of felt otherwise. And yeah, we want to hear from you. How do you feel about hospitality? I mean, is that something that you think is very important for you? Have you seen it expressed in different ways by different people? Share your stories with us. You can call 7733 2900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, and tweet us at BFM Radio.
So I think it beyond, earlier I think we focused quite a lot on hospitality being something that's done at home, right? When people come and visit your homes, if you have festivities, you have kanduris, or, during, Raya or Chinese New Year, whatever. But it's also during, if let's say you constantly go to a one constant restaurant that you always visit and you build up a relationship with the staff, you build up a relationship with the owner of the restaurant. That's also a form of hospitality, right? You have to be a good guest there. They have to be a good host to you either, though there is that that financial transaction there as well. I think it applies in a lot of other realms too.
Yeah, and I think one of our informants in this survey also said that it also applies to tourism as well. The way we our a public service sort of treats tourists in here. I think, I don't know, judging by the tourist places I've been, some are pretty good at being hospitable, whereas some maybe can do better. So there is a sort of mixed kind of performance in terms of our approach to tourists here, even though we are trying to encourage them to come here.
I think it's something that's super cultural, and it's something that needs to be learned and kind of ingrained because, so my feelings about it are complex because I think I'm a late in life host. So it's something that I only kind of learned how to be a bit later on because I am the child of two people who are both pretty much the youngest in their respective families, which means during Chinese New Year, nobody visits us. My parents were also not the kinds of people who threw us birthday parties when we were younger. So I just don't have a lot of practice welcoming people into my home. And so it was only kind of later on through observation and also through working here and having to greet people when they come in, offer them a glass of water, offer a seat, things like that. I used to take it for granted. I think even now my hosting skills, such as they are probably more informal than I think most homes that I'm in. Sometimes I will forget to offer you a glass of water. It's not personal. I just, it's something that I kind of have to learn every single time. And it's a pity because I actually think that hosting and being hospitable and welcoming people into your space and making everybody feel comfortable and welcome, it's a hugely important and underrated skill, right? And the more we forget to do it, the more we become people who only know how to text. It's kind of an extension of that thought, right? Like now even calling somebody is an imposition. It's like, how dare you, so rude. Much less just kind of ringing someone's doorbell and showing up. Like to a lot of us, I think of the text generation, that would be something horrifying. It's like, who are you? What's happening? But that used to be the way people visited.
Actually true. I grew up in my grandma's house and I think it was something that we would always be ready for. We would always have biscuits at the ready, drinks at the ready for anyone to just come and visit. And I think back where we lived, there was that constant neighborly visit on a day-to-day basis. And I think right now, how that's translated to somehow I feel a bit intimidated by being a good host. I feel like my home, my room, my car is not ready enough. Is my cat well groomed enough for a guest to appear suddenly? I think of those things and I don't ever feel like I'm good enough as a host. Even if it's just offering a glass of water, I feel like that's still inadequate. I should be offering a bit more.
Tea, perhaps.
Tea, maybe orange juice. Do you want some milk? What do you want?
Yes. So we are talking today about the importance of being a good host, of trying to kind of reach where we were before. I think in some cases, I feel like it's almost a generational thing. But we want to hear from you. I mean, how important is this whole idea of being a good host, being a good guest? How has it impacted you? Let us know. You can call us at 7733 2900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, and tweet us at BFM Radio. We're going to be back after this with Associate Professor Dr. Anasuya Jagadevi Jagathesan on the line with us. Keep it here on the Evening Edition, BFM 89.9.
Bringing fresh meaning. BFM 89.9.
It's 5:16 in the evening with Lynn, Kelvin and Ayman, and we're talking today about the value of being a good host and of being a good guest because it's something I think of a lost skill these days, something that I think one of the things we're losing when it comes to less face-to-face interaction perhaps. Is that your experience? Is that something you've noticed, that we're not being as good hosts, as good a host as we used to be in the past, perhaps? Call us and let us know. 7733 2900, WhatsApp 018-789-8899, tweet us at BFM Radio. We're crossing over in the meantime to Associate Professor Dr. Anasuya Jagadevi Jagathesan, who is the Program Director of Psychology at Taylor's University. Dr. Anasuya, thank you so much for joining us. Could you start with, how would you define a hospitable person?
I mean, somebody who's welcoming to guests and welcoming to people who that is coming into their area, their space. And keeping in mind that the person coming into their space is also showing a reasonable amount of manners and to a certain extent has been invited.
And how does a person become a good or a bad host?
I mean, if somebody is visiting you, you are a good host when, you give the person the attention and you give them appropriate, give a guest the appropriate feeling of welcome according to whatever culture or custom you're from. When somebody's in your house, if your phone is ringing, your phone is on, you have a quick glance at it, then maybe switch it off, give your guest the attention that you give the same person calling you. I think that's one of the biggest things nowadays. We're kind of losing. It's like you have somebody in front of you, but somebody who's not in front of you deserves more attention than the person in front of you. That can be a family member or a guest. What is hospitable is sometimes, as somebody who is serving, if your house you only have water or tea, that's being hospitable, showing what's at home, serving what's available. You don't have to go across the board and say, there's nothing at home, there's always water. But I do not think that serving more than is necessary. I mean, it's a nice gesture, but it's beyond hospitable. It's being, an excellent host, maybe.
Is the art of hospitality something that's learned?
I'd honestly say yes. Because parents teach children how to treat guests. Parents, look at what's acceptable, what's not acceptable when you have guests coming. Sometimes guests also must understand if you drop in, people may not be in a good headspace to be hospitable. Because hospitality also requires, people to be in a certain, framework of they are not dealing with their own issues. Sometimes people are caught in their own issues, and if you're caught in your own issue, it's very hard to be hospitable at that point in time. So there is a learned behavior, but then there's also a understanding that both parties need to be in a certain frame of mind in order to accept visitors.
Right. And, we spoke about this earlier. Why do you think it is that food is something that's linked with hospitality?
Okay, when people come, especially in Asian cultures, we are very cultured about food. When people come to our house, we want to feed them, we want to give them something to eat, at least feeling a bit satisfied. I'm Ceylonese Indian, and basically, when you come to the house, it's like, especially at certain times of the year, you need to have a hot drink, or you need to have something not just sweet, a little bit savory. So it can be like muruku or something like that. And as part of our culture, that's what's expected as a guest, that they have something to eat. And sometimes when guests feel, we're just dropping in, we don't want to eat anything, it does work two ways. There is a reason why certain cultures offer certain foods. And, if you're coming in a guest for somebody's house, sometimes it is cultural to accept the food. Sometimes your guests will come to the house and say, "Oh no, we don't want anything." Then they say, "No, can we just please give you, some water?" Just say yes. Just take a couple of sips here and there, have a nibble. Don't have to finish the whole thing, but you have to understand that for some people it's custom and it's culture. So for them they don't feel comfortable if the guest doesn't have anything. So sometimes that's why it does work both ways. When you are coming as a guest to somebody's house, if they're offering, then just have some water, have something light. Don't have to have too much of it. But be nice.
So the article that we were discussing looks at the transition from guest to host as a measure of maturity. Is good hospitality something that is mainly learned in adulthood, you think?
Learned in adulthood is kind of late. Being a good guest, being a good host is something we learn from childhood. If when you're a child, when you go into somebody's house and you're going with your parents to visit, and you're on a game, you're playing a game the whole time, and your parents allow you to play the game the whole time, do you really think that as an adult you'll have suddenly, magically have different kind of manners? Or if your child sees the parents, on the phone the whole time and they have guests or they're talking to people, who do you think they learn it from? So, there is a level of discipline in hospitality. There's a level of discipline in terms of family, and there's a level of culture. What is your family's culture in how you treat your guests and how you expect guests to be treated? So when guests come to your house, your children see how you treat them. And when they go to other people's house, they behave in the same way. So there is a level of maturity in being... But it's maturity that's taught from when people are quite young. And from becoming a guest to a host, sometimes some people are very bad guests. And there is a limit to hospitality when it has to be disciplined. I mean, there are situations where kids go into adults go into people's house and take stuff without asking, and they go into rooms where they're not invited to. Now, that's not mature behavior as well for a guest. They expect more than what the host is offering. Again, not appropriate behavior as a guest. So there is a level of social contract or a social understanding between two people if you're coming in to visit somebody, how you're supposed to be treated and, how that treatment is expected in return. So, going back to some of the oldest teachings and sayings of everybody, treat people how you want to be treated when you visit people's houses.
Is hospitality linked to other types of traits?
So when you talk about hospitality, if I'm going to get a little bit psychological, then if you're talking about the Ocean Five, the big 5 attributes that people use to identify a lot of traits, conscientiousness would be part of hospitality. That means how conscientious are you of your surroundings? How conscientious of you are others? Introvert or extrovert, you can be an introvert and you can be hospitable. You can be an extrovert and you can be hospitable. It's just your level of how many friends you'd like at the same time would differ. And as an introvert host, you probably have different offerings for your guests than an extrovert host. And so what you offer may be slightly different, but I do think that, the traits would be more about what is being offered than your ability to be hospitable in terms of introvert or extrovert. But conscientiousness, yes. The more conscientious you are, the more hospitable you are as a guest as well as a host, because then you're aware of other people.
Yeah, and we've been talking quite a bit about that interplay between being a host, being a guest. So let's get to this. What about being a good guest? Is there a clear definition of what that means?
Yes, please don't be entitled. Entitlement is not a nice thing in anybody. And when people come in as a guest and then they think they're entitled to go wherever they want to go, they're entitled to take whatever they want to take, they're entitled to let the children run around and act crazy. Come on. And they're entitled to stay longer than they're welcome. That's not being a good guest. That's taking advantage of your host. That's using your host. That is being very greedy and very selfish. So if you're going to be a guest in somebody's house, whether it's for a short term or a long term, please don't be entitled. Sometimes we open our houses to people who are traveling from overseas or and people stay for a particular amount of time, and that is agreed upon. So if you're going to extend, then those things need to be requested, they need to be asked, and behavior has to be appropriate. And just because you're staying in somebody's house, that doesn't mean they have to cook all the meals for you, and you wash, and as the guest, you expect the host to wash all the dishes all the time, because you're the guest. Come on. There is a certain level of behavior that expected. Please don't be entitled. It's just not nice. If you're entitled and you think that you deserve to be treated because you're a guest. Yes, we deserve a certain respect, but your host deserves equal amount of respect. It is their house. They're welcoming you. There needs to be gratitude. There needs to be an understanding that the host also has a life and also has things to do and is going out of their way to accommodate you. So feeling a sense of gratitude, feeling a sense of, okay, how can we best make it easy for the host? Or what can I do to help out here and there? All those things, it makes for good long-term relationships instead of people feeling used and abused by their friends and family. Maybe more family than friends.
And does hospitality differ greatly across different cultures?
I cannot speak for every culture in the world because that's a lot to ask. But I do think it does differ according to each culture, slightly different. Like, for the Japanese customs, how would you sit? The sitting down on those low tables. Some people would not find that comfortable. Indian families where you take off Indian and even Malay families where you take off your shoes versus places where you don't take off your shoes. What do you eat with your fingers? Do you eat with forks and spoon? Do you know how to use a chopstick? So there are certain things which come with different cultures that we kind of assume everybody knows, but they don't.
Do you think hospitality in modern times is taking on a different meaning?
No, I don't. I don't think that there was one particular meaning. It's just basically hospitality means making somebody feel welcome. And I think that, no matter what kind of situation you are in and what age or whatever age it is, if I'm welcoming you into my house and you are a welcome guest into my house, then I will make you feel welcome. I think maybe the drop-in, because in those days people didn't travel so fast, they didn't travel so much. People probably wouldn't drop in at the drop of a hat. What else nowadays, because of, we travel faster, we travel further, we travel more often, people do tend to drop in a little bit more. So in those days, if somebody came from very far as a surprise, there would be no way of knowing when they're going to drop in. So, people are very hospitable to uninvited or unknowing guests. Nowadays, we're a bit less so because our time is a little bit more, we do expect people to pick up the phone and call first or inform first before dropping in, because we have that ease of communication that, 80 years ago, it wasn't that easy. Even 40 years ago, it wasn't that easy. 20 years ago, it wasn't that easy, but now it's really easy. So, as the modes of communication have changed, it has impacted on how we perceive, guests coming to the house, and we do expect that we get some warning. Whereas in those days, there probably wasn't much warning. So that has changed, but that's because of technology as well.
Absolutely. Dr. Anasuya, thank you so much for speaking with us today. That was Associate Professor Dr. Anasuya Jagadevi Jagathisan, Program Director of Psychology at Taylor's University, weighing in on this idea of being a good host and a good guest. Is that something that matters to you? Do you think that we're lacking in that? Call us and let us know. 7733 2900, WhatsApp 018 789 8899, tweet us at BFM Radio.
Best flipping moments. BFM 89.9. The business station.
It's 5:40 in the evening with Lynn, Kelvin and Ayman. And earlier on, we were speaking about hospitality, about the notion of being a good host. That came from an article in The Guardian, which discussed that, as well as being a good guest, talking about how different cultures kind of express that differently. And I guess the importance of continuing to be a good host, right, in the modern setting. So I wanted to know, really, what's your take on this? Do you think you're a good host? Do you think Malaysians are good hosts in general? Or is it something perhaps we need to up our game on? So call us, 7733 2900. You can WhatsApp 018 789 8899 and tweet us at BFM Radio.
We have this message here from EHT that says, when you decide to invite someone to your house, it means that they are someone to you. Therefore, try to be the most hospitable host, and definitely they will feel it. When you serve them, it will reflect how you stand with them, to them.
Yeah, you can really feel special when you can see that they put a lot of effort and attention to make you feel welcome, right? Because I remember when I went to visit my mother's friends in Scotland, they allowed us to stay there for like 4 days, and they provided us comfortable rooms and cooked us breakfast, lunch and dinner, all halal food, and that made us really special and really welcome there. So like when you invite guests over and you make sure that you provide really good food, or at least something that can keep them entertained, then you can really help them feel welcome and comfortable at your house.
I read that message a little bit differently, and I think for me, maybe this is, my own lens and my own view of hosting. I view that as a call to kind of drop perfectionism a little bit, meaning, it's about your intention. So, because I do think a lot of us, part of the reason why maybe we don't want to host dinner parties, part of the reason why we don't want to have people over is, what you were talking about earlier, Kelvin, is my house clean enough? Am I going to serve the right food? Is that going to be the right thing? Will people be sufficiently entertained and comfortable? And I think I think Dr. Anasuya talked about it earlier, what people want is to feel attention, right? Is to feel that you are attentive to their needs. And so maybe if you don't land it perfectly right, that still doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and kind of practice. That's how I'm reading it, because that's how I need to take it. I'm not a perfect host. And if I kind of beat myself up over it every time, then I just never have people over.
I think it's on both ends, right? While you do try to be a good host, I think you also want to expect that perhaps on the end of the guest, there is a mutual understanding. I think for myself as a guest, I really don't want the hosts to fuss over me. If I go over, it's really just to catch up with you, if anything, or to just see how you're doing. So I'm okay with the water, I'm okay with the food. But if you're really asking me to have something I will, just out of as a sign of respect, I think.
Melissa has a really kind of lovely thought saying, I used to have sheets of unbaked cookie dough and frozen muffins in my freezer for impromptu guests. But after the arrival of my daughter, all of that went out the window. I still do have a good selection of teas though, but I'm trying to get my freezer stocked up again.
That's a good idea, having like food available, right? That you can just like cook up quickly.
I think especially cookies and muffins because they smell so good. So it's like a super welcoming smell.
Melissa, you are the host I aspire to be one day.
Yeah, and I think everybody understands after the arrival of a daughter or a son, nobody is expecting freshly baked cookies and muffins when they arrive. And if they are expecting that, then I think, what was the word Dr. Anasuya used just now? Was it entitled? She said many times.
I think it was something like that.
Yeah. Arihan, meanwhile, says, I remember a long time ago when my parents were away, a respected uncle dropped by with his family. I served them syrup. Later, my mom tested to see if the syrup was sweet enough.
No, at least you did something.
But also, I mean, that's what I'm saying, right? Like there is, I think when it's ingrained into how you were raised, when your parents kind of really care about hosting, that's something that gets passed down. Hence this being a memory that Arihan has. We also have some tweets, including this from Manlun, who says, being hospitable to your guests reflects who you are, your family upbringing, values and manners.
And I think that is true, right? And I think if your family has been one that is very open to serving guests, that will also show if you happen to eventually own your own place, for example. And it also shows if how you respond necessarily even outside, right, of your home space. If you, for example, in the office, if you happen to be someone who expects a lot of meetings with outside people, then you'll have those procedures already set in. You'll know to ask them to take a seat first. You'll know to ask them to, if they want something to drink. That's not something that unfortunately comes naturally.
But I don't think it entirely reflects your family values, right? Because sometimes you just happen to be an awkward person or an introvert and you're not good with like socializing or speaking with people. So if that is the case, it doesn't reflect badly on your family or whatever. It's just that, some people just aren't made for being hosts. But as long as they do something like serve a drink or something, then at least they do it in their own way.
If you have thoughts on being a good host, a good guest, is it something that you inherently are? Is it something you learned? We want to hear from you. You can call us 7733 2900, WhatsApp 018 789 8899 and tweet us at BFM Radio. We are also in the meantime playing Name That Tune.
Yeah, so let's see if you can guess the song behind today's clue.
If you know, you know.
Well, this is your cue to call. If you know the name of the song and the artist, you can call us at 7733 2900 to stand a chance to win the world famous bulging BFM goodie bag.
One more time, I think, just because it's funny. 7733 2900 is that number to call. In the meantime, we have Arlo Guthrie with Coming Into Los Angeles, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my, BFM 89.9, the business station. The business station. The business station. The business station.